Talk of the romance of canals today, and most people would think of Venice, perhaps of Holland. Yet these locks are in the heart of the English countryside. They were built almost 150 years ago, and they're part of the first industrial link between London and Birmingham, the Grand Union Canal. Today, there are more than 2,000 miles of such navigable waterways in the British Isles, carrying some 10 million tons of cargo a year. And that tonnage does not include the traffic handled by the great inland ports. Even before Charles I had lost his head, some 1,200 miles of our rivers had been made navigable, and the bulk of British commerce was waterborne. But with the Industrial Revolution came new wealth, new cities, new commerce, and new ways had to be opened to the sea. Of course, not all are beautiful. In fact, if they are to fulfill their function, they cannot be, for the canals are a reminder of the days before Britain's roads became a problem. We had no roads, except those left by the Romans, and James Watt had yet to invent the steam engine. But coal was to become the lifeblood of commerce. The canals were to be the arteries by which it flowed. It started here in 1759. The third Duke of Bridgewater mined coal on his estate at Worsley in Lancashire. To get it to the new factories of Manchester, he built his own canal, because the River Irwell authorities tried to charge him exorbitant tolls. James Brindley, a millwright from Leek, had the 10-mile work completed within 2 years, and the canal boom was on. The original Bridgewater Canal still crosses the nearby Manchester Ship Canal by an aqueduct, which swings open to allow big ships to pass. Although the Ship Canal is a more modern engineering feat, it was opened in 1894, its story is no less romantic. In the 1880s, the plight of Manchester was desperate. There were nearly 19,000 empty houses in the city. It cost 19 shillings and threepence a ton to ship goods to Calcutta, of which 12 and 6 had been charged before the cargo left Liverpool. The Ship Canal broke this stranglehold, and Manchester became the industrial capital of the north. Today, its port handles some 18 million tons a year, of which the vast majority is ocean-going traffic. The principle behind the operation of any canal is that water seeks its own level. But because of this, the engineering challenge is always a considerable one. Many brave new ideas were tried out in the old days. This unusual lift near Northwich does the work of a whole flight of locks. On the old narrow canals, however, almost all of which were built in the 40 years from 1790, the process of locking remains unaltered. Incredible flights of locks were built by those early engineers in their efforts to beat the contours of the rolling English countryside. These are Hatton Locks near Warwick, in which the Grand Union level is raised through 146 feet to 337 feet above sea level. There are no fewer than 21 consecutive locks like these, and even though the water may do the actual lifting of the boat, the work is still just as hard as it was in the early 19th century, particularly for an amateur crew making their home in a converted barge on hire for the holiday. Who said the canals are so restful? But sometimes the contours were too much even for those early master lock builders. And when they couldn't go over, they went through. The Blisworth Tunnel near Towcester in Northamptonshire is 1 3/4 miles long. It took 5 years longer to build than the rest of the waterway, 5 years in which the cargoes were offloaded onto wagons and horse-drawn round the hill. In a long and difficult tunnel like this, there's no room for a towpath. The heavy boats were propelled by men. They called them leggers because with their feet on those curving walls, they legged the boat along in the darkness. Nowadays, the specially built narrowboats, as they are called, work in pairs, the leader propelled by a diesel engine, towing its unpowered butty boat behind. But even until the 1920s, the principal method of propulsion had been horsepower, 1 horsepower. As early as 1826, a steam tug was used to tow barges through the Islington Tunnel on the Regent's Canal, but the towpath still lives up to its name in the city basin. Here, the narrowboats meet the more beamy Thames lighters and powerful tugs which ply these suburbs of the London docks. But it's the narrowboats and their people who still cradle the old traditions of the canals. Generation after generation has been born and raised within the few square feet which are at once their living and their home. Conditions in so small a space will go one of two ways, either spotless and immaculate or squalid beyond belief. But the canal folk are proud of their traditional brasswork, their paintings and their china, and such a tradition of work and craftsmanship dies hard. But although the canals are tideless, time has turned against them. Neglect and deliberate financial sabotage by the old railway companies have taken heavy toll of what was once a brilliantly engineered communication system. Yet our overcrowded roads offer only small savings in time and are frequently more expensive per ton-mile for certain types of bulk cargo than the deserted canals. And this same overcrowding has encouraged a new race of canal people to take to the waterways purely for the joy of it. Some live in permanently moored houseboats. Some keep their cruising craft on a pleasant reach. A few prefer complete freedom of choice. The modern outboard engine has undeniable advantages over the horse. But naturally, in any well-conducted crew, it's still women and children first. The helmsman has 2,000 miles of delightful waterway to wander. It's cheap and it's cheerful. The enjoyment of the canals is not confined to the private boat owner. When John Nash designed London's Regent's Canal in 1810, he prophesied an annual 250,000-ton traffic. His figures were soon to prove conservative. Today, the Regent's Canal is a splendid way to go to the zoo. Whether or not the canals can earn their keep in a modern integrated transport system is a question soon to be faced at last. But in the centre of London, or the heart of the English countryside, where no tide flows, there still survives a living link with an exciting and romantic past.